Thank you for tuning into IFES on Elections. I'm Laura Osio. South Sudan joyously celebrated its independence from Sudan on July 9th. Yet, while a series of elections helped usher in this new era for the South Sudanese, the world's newest nation faces a number of steep challenges as it solidifies its democracy and develops as an independent country. Almami Cyllah, IFES Regional Director for Africa, talks to us about what lies ahead for South Sudan. Almami, South Sudan saw a jubilant celebration of its independence, but the real work begins now. What can Juba do to solidify its democracy?
I think what Juba can do to solidify its democracy is for the leaders to recognize that they are there to serve their people and not to be the rulers, so to speak. And they need to involve the people every step of the way because at the end of the day, it's the people who are going to be affected by whether it's a good rule or a bad rule. And therefore, when you involve them every step of the way, confidence is built, democracy is accepted by all, and then you'll be able to move the country forward. For an example, one of the ways that the people can be involved in the process is for the government to engage civil society, for the government to be transparent and informing the citizens every step of the way with policies and moves that are going to be taken by the government so that they can seek the advice of the population, leading to a better governance.
Almami, you know Africa very well. What are some of the stumbling blocks that the people of South Sudan or the government of South Sudan should look out for and avoid as they continue moving towards development and democratization?
I think some of the stumbling blocks that South Sudan government should try to avoid, given all other African countries that have done it, is to be careful not to become the bosses of the people, but rather the servants of the people, and involving the people every step of the way in the governance issues in the country. I think if they can get into that, they will avoid some of the greatest stumbling blocks. And I think if you take the late President Abraham Lincoln's quotation, which is used around the world, which is pretty much the accepted quotation now, in a good democracy, we have to accept that, and I quote, the government has to be a government of the people, for the people, by the people, end of quote. And I think if South Sudan can accept that and administrate or govern in that aspect, then I think South Sudan is really poised to move forward in the positive direction.
How is the international community helping this new country?
Well, you know, the international community is helping this new country, or can help this country, I must say, in a variety of ways. For an example, they did provide a lot of support during the Comprehensive Peace Accord. They provided a support toward the referendum, of which IFES was quite involved in providing a lot of the electoral materials to have a good election, a good referendum held, and a good turnout. And I think the IFES involvement is extremely, extremely helpful. And I think if the international community can turn out in that same vein in terms of the kind of support they provided leading to the referendum and leading now to independence, if they can provide that kind of a support in the day-to-day governing of that country, I think South Sudan will be a good example of a new nation in Africa that will avoid the temptation of falling back into serious human rights violations, dictatorship, and so on.
Almami, you've touched a little on what IFES did leading up to the referendum, but what will IFES be doing in South Sudan now?
Well, it's extremely, extremely important for IFES to be in South Sudan, and at this point in time when the country is beginning to build, when the country is looking at the constitution, the electoral laws of the country, the new electoral management body that will be formed. It's at this moment that I think IFES is strongest in providing the kind of support, not only technical but also mediation type, where we work with the Electoral Commission to work with the civil society and other stakeholders to have a proper step forward in electoral administration in South Sudan.
Thank you, Almami.
Thank you very much, Laura.
For more IFES on elections, please visit www.ifes.org.